My name is Russell Carpenter. I'm a cinematographer. I think it was John Toll who said the responsibility of the cinematographer is to be the guardian of the director's intent, the guardian of the story. And a cinematographer has to know about story, has to know where the emotion is in the camera, has to know about what lighting does and how it changes a viewer's emotion, what framing does. Because especially in feature films, everything is driven toward composition, how color, how movement, and how light resonates within the emotional framework of the viewer. The first time I read a script, I think, well, would this movie be like for a viewer to see? How would they be affected? And for me, I start to work from light and composition first, because that's what I'm oriented to. I eventually am able to go in pre-production and talk more and more with the director about where he or she intends to go with the film and within each scene. And I digest that. Often in pre-production, at least for the first 2 weeks, I'm very much in sponge mode, and I'm really trying to make sure I understand where the director wants to go. Not only are you going over with the director about the tone, the mood, the color, the light, and maybe you reference pictures and stuff like that. Maybe you start to make some notes. But basically, what I did when I was starting out is I made what I called a brain book. And I went over every scene, and I would have visual references, I would have my notes, I might have clips of movies tucked away somewhere. Because what happens in film is that why you still have the physical capacity, it hasn't been robbed and deteriorated by exhaustion. What you have is that time where you make the movie first. That's where the movie is made. Then that book, that thinking, serves as a safety net. So no matter, like in the 7th week when everybody's already on their last legs, you still have the safety net to look back and say, well, this is what I was thinking of. This is what the director said about this. And you have that touchstone that's going to bring you back to your vision. So I really believe in pre-production, and I believe whenever possible, the best thing to do is do the testing you need to do. Somebody once said pre-production is like driving a car toward a frozen lake, because as you're driving the car toward the lake, at least you have some traction and you can set direction. Once you hit the ice on that lake, the car is going to skid in so many different directions. It may go round and round, but if the inertia that you set at the beginning is right, you may get at least close to where you thought you were going to go. Almost every day, something goes wrong. And because you've prepared so much, you have a sense of what plan B might be. That also gives you the benefit of being able to play a little bit. Let's say something I did in Titanic. There was a scene that first introduces Kate Winslet, and she steps out of a car in Titanic. The car is high over her head and comes down toward her. And as the camera comes down, she gets out of the car and looks up. And Jim Cameron said, I want this to be the moment we met Audrey Hepburn in My Fair Lady. And I said, oh yes, the hat's similar, let's do something great. And there was something that I thought, kind of at the moment, I said, well, something really simple we can do is that as the camera moves down and she tilts her head up, I'll just simply open the aperture on the camera lens and it'll make her face glow. Kate had that marvelous skin. And it was just something that simple, and maybe the audience didn't recognize it consciously, but it did. It gave her face a glow. Cinematographer usually has to wear at least 4 hats, especially on a set. I mean, you have to be a storyteller, you have to be a technician, you're a manager of time and crew resources, and you're a politician, because a cinematographer is on the set all the time. Everybody's looking to that person, and you have to be, especially when things aren't going as well as you might have hoped, a politician, because everybody looks to you. And if they see that the cinematographer is tubing or banging his or her head against the wall, that doesn't inspire the most confidence in actors or the crew, so you need to put on a good game face. Eventually, people are going to recognize you for certain talents you have, but they're also going to recognize you for certain dispositions you have on the set. And sometimes you hear, oh, somebody's great. They're such a great, they're a master of light, but they're a pain in the neck to work with. So you've got to keep both ends of the scale up. You've got to keep your game up on both ends. Every director that I work with has been different. Nobody's ever the same. And what I try to do in pre-production is sense, well, what does the director need? How can I serve this director the best that I can? And that's very different for everybody. But you find out where somebody could use some assistance. And then sometimes it's just being a co-conspirator with a director because you heard what he or she said they wanted in each scene, and then you're shooting the scene and you notice, you know what, I think this isn't what so-and-so said that they wanted. And so you could just say, are you sure you want to send this scene this way because you said in pre-production this was very important. So you can help, you can certainly help a director in many, many ways, sometimes technical and sometimes non-technical. But it's always going to change. That's very much a sliding floor in terms of personalities and skill sets of directors. I know there's some cinematographers who work differently, but I'm fine with a director saying, that this shot, it's not quite where I wanted it to go. And I said, okay, well, let's talk about what you want. Let me change it. And that's fine. The worst thing for me as a cinematographer is somebody who's not quite communicating. So you spend a lot of time lighting a set, setting it up, and it could be a big shot. And then they come in, they look at the camera or the monitor, and they say, nah, and then all of a sudden you've just wasted a bunch of time. Being there for post is the most important thing that you can do. If you can't be at least trying to see what the colorist is doing every day, somehow, some way, dailies or stills from dailies can be shipped out to you. It's so important because what's captured can be treated or moved in so many different directions in post. It's just like raw material now, which is not the way it was in the case of shooting on film, which didn't have that much flexibility. When you were shooting on film and going through what used to be the classic lab process, that was a very different world. Now, you really need to spend the time keeping your finger on where that direction is going in post. You're protecting your work, and you need to communicate that all the way through to just before the film is released. I think how I came to movie making was I saw something, I saw a scene or a shot, and I felt this firelight within me that this is what I want to do. I want to live in this world. How do I get there? But you keep, all you have to do is you just have to keep fanning that fire and not lose track of that. If you feel like I just can't do anything else with my life, that's a pretty good indication that that's what you should be doing. The hard part is, how do you distinguish yourself from everybody else? And especially when there's also so much bad stuff out there. I think one answer might be to align yourself with a director who has a strong voice, a strong vision, a good script. And I know that those are few and far between, but if you can find that person, and people see the movie for the content, they'll also see how well you shot the movie. And that will help propel you along your path.